kind of tracing your journey just a little bit, because I'm fascinated by actors, because I had at one point for like maybe all of a year, I thought I'll be an actor, and then I realized how much work was involved, and how much you had to have a tougher skin than I had, and I couldn't sing. There were a lot of factors in my deciding that it was better to focus on something else. But I had friends who have gone on, and some of them have had some success. My wife went to high school with the woman who played the maid in The Sopranos, who I guess also played a maid on, I think, Gilmore Girls and a couple of other things. So, a superstar adjacent, I would say. But I also know some actors who, gosh, I almost wish they'd pursued writing because it would be a little bit less rejection.
Yeah.
So when did you decide you wanted to be an actress, and what was the process of deciding that wasn't maybe so great?
My dad was a publicist in the movie business, and I just love the idea of being a child actor. I mean, not that that had anything to do with his job, but he used to bring my sister and me into the studio and take us on sets, and it was just so glamorous, the idea of all this happening. And
any movie sets that esteemed audience might recognize?
Depends on how old they are. Let me think of the most. Mary Poppins was one of the biggest excitement of my young life.
Wow, that would be, wow.
Yeah. Yep, right?
That's a part of your childhood? That's amazing.
Yeah, and Mary Poppins, it was the scene where they were in the Jolly Holiday section of the movie, where there were the cartoon characters and the penguins and the dancing and all that stuff. It was the part where Mary Poppins wins the horse race, and they were handing her a bouquet of flowers. But since they were animated, the characters that handed her the flowers, I'll never forget this. Julie Andrews standing there and going, thank you. And she received, this flower thing on a wire comes over, and it was just very memorable. And the children, the kids who played Jane and Michael were there, and I got to meet them. And, so it was and they were dressed in these just adorable outfits. And that's what I wanted to do. I want to be one of these kids. And of course, my parents would have none of that. You're going to school and you're going to study something that you can fall back on, So I never got to, the closest I got to being an actress when I was a little kid was, going to some class or something like that. But I used to pretend. I think this really does tie probably to my imagination as a writer, is that when I was a little kid, I would fall in love with some TV show, and if there was a kid on it, or even if there wasn't, I would make up a character, and I would imagine episodes in my head for the story of what I was. And at night, when I'd go to bed, I would act it out, So I had a very vivid imagination, and that was, what. And like I said, as I grew up and I got into acting classes in school and high school especially, and being in the acting clique, it's a real family. I have friends today that I had friends that were my friends back then, my acting friends. And like I said, it made me feel special to be in a play, to be someone else, to act out whatever the character was. It just brought me a lot of joy. And then, and same for college. I did a lot of acting in college. And then after college, I live in Los Angeles. I've always lived in Los Angeles. I came back from college, which was near Los Angeles, and the opportunities to act in Los Angeles were commercials and movies and TV. And I'm kind of a character type. And I did not find that to be rewarding at all. I did not like the opportunities. I didn't like the having to put myself out there the way that you did. And I wanted more stability in my life. I found that the life of an actor wasn't as much as the glamour of it, you know. I mean, when I was faced with the reality of it, there's really not a lot of glamour. It's hard work, and I wanted stability at that point in my life. This was like in my 20s, as I said. So I got a job in an office, and I found that was the stability that I was looking for. You know, I knew where I was going every morning. I would have a paycheck at the end of the month or whenever. And, you know, I was really good at the things that I ended up working at. So, and ultimately, I ended up, this is why it's so ironic, because ultimately, I didn't want to work for anyone else anymore. And that's why I started my own business. So talk about instability. You know, my life is a series of contradictions. I can't even explain how it happened, but I've been so lucky because once I started my own business, I you know, I had a lot of contacts. My parents connected me with, I said they were publicists. So they connected me with people, and that was really helpful. I bow down to them for, you know, for being, you know, they never hired me. They couldn't afford to do that, which was like the best gift they could ever give me because I had to do it on my own. But they helped a lot. And then one client would lead to another. And, you know, here we are some 30 years later. And, you know, that's what I still do. And I liked, again, another contradiction. I like being behind the scenes. I didn't like putting myself out there. And one of the reasons I wanted to have an agent so badly was for my writing was because I thought, well, if I have an agent, then someone else really thinks I'm good enough to publish this book, and then I can put myself out there. But I talked to a friend of mine because she was really urging me to just somehow get this book into, you know, get this book published, whatever it was going to take. And I just kept going, no, you don't understand. I can't put myself out there. And she said to me, she asked me one day, why not? And I had to think about it for a minute. And I realized that there was no good reason that I couldn't do that. And as it turns out, I'm loving talking about my book. I'm loving, you know, doing all the things that I'm doing that normally I send my clients to do, and I give them all the checklists, you know, be sure to watch the show before you're on it and have some talking points. And, you know, and here I am because I'm just talking to you about what is in my heart as opposed to some business that I'm trying to remember what, you know, what is the most important thing about them. So this is a gift to me. It's a treat. I love it. And, you know, that sort of speaks to some more significant parts of my story than I mentioned earlier.
There are so many good follow-up questions. One, I want to make a promise to esteemed audience that we will talk more about publicity. It's not lost on me that we have a publicist with a debut novel, and by God, we will talk about it. But I want to dive into the novel. But before we leave acting behind, I do wonder what skills from your time as an actress have you brought with you and have translated into writing? Because I'm of the opinion that every writer should do at least a little bit of acting, but I'll let you elucidate why.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the case. I tend to be very visual about you know, what I'm writing. I know exactly what the kids in my book look like. I know what the setting looks like. And when I'm writing, it 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 helps me to envision what is going on inside them, just the way that I would if I was preparing for an acting role. Like, what's the gut feeling of this person at any given moment? And that, from those places, the words come out. And sometimes I can't necessarily think of the right words or the words that end up being on the page, but I just write down, you know, she feels sick, or she feels thrilled, or whatever, you know, whatever it is. I can't really think of anything right now, but you know, or she's scared, or, you know, she's pissed off. Like when I was writing Summer of Luck, there was a lot about one of the characters, the girl character, that I relate to a lot in childhood. And I just used to remember how it felt when this would happen or that would happen. And then, you know, I would bring myself back to that moment, and again, like I was building a character to act. And so that's one of the important ways that's really helped me. Another thing is, you know, what are they doing when they're sitting there talking? You know, are they scratching their head? Are they studying their nails? You know, I mean, you need to refer to that stuff a lot if you're going to avoid saying he said, she said, you know, that kind of thing. And or facial expressions, you know, are they going, like, you know, it's easier to go than to write down what that looks like, you know. So I have to start someplace, and I do it based on a lot of things I learned, you know, when I was acting.